This video is going to be straight up facts about studying for the Mcat.
Oh, now you want to show up.
When you first start studying for the Mcat, don't be surprised if you have a massive headache after just doing the diagnostic exam.
Now, would you recommend UWorld or Princeton Review?
Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Emily. I am an incoming medical student starting August 10th, and I am doing a series called So You Want to Go to Medical School. Welcome to part 5. I'm super excited to share this video with you today. A lot of students struggle with the Mcat and they want to make sure they get it right the first time. I've compiled all this information from my own experiences as well as a lot of my friends who range from retakers, really high scorers, people who have been studying a few years, and people who standardized testing doesn't come easily to them. This is my honest opinion. I am not sponsored by any study brand, but I do have a few Amazon affiliate links specifically for Princeton Review and Kaplan. We'll get to that later. That just means that it's the same product, same price. If you use that link to complete a purchase, a small portion goes towards supporting this channel. But first, make sure that you are subscribed so that you know when my next video is up, and follow my Instagram because they have the written guides that accompany these videos. So without further ado, let's get started. I know things are different right now with COVID-19 and the recent changes to the Mcat, but most online full-length exams are adjusted to this shorter time. Step 1 is to do your research. You want to look up Mcat strategies, tips and tricks, resources. That's this. Congratulations. Step 2 is to make a study plan. I recommend doing an overarching long-term study plan and then also fill that with short goals, whether that's daily, weekly, monthly, especially when it comes to your full-length practice exams, which I will go over in a bit. Make sure your study plan is reasonable. It's very common for students to experience burnout. They end up pushing back their test, and then who knows, a pandemic could happen. So make sure that you can stick to a schedule and a reasonable date. But if you do have to push it back, that's totally fine. I did it too. Leave room for catch-up days. You're never going to get everything that you want to get done on every single study day. That being said, make sure you schedule study breaks, whether that's hourly, daily, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly. Everyone needs time off, and you most likely have other things going on in your life instead of just studying 10 hours a day. Now let's talk about resources. Anything March 2019 or beyond reflects the most recent changes made to the Mcat. The first and best resource I'm going to recommend is AAMC. If nothing else, spend your money here. They will include full-length exams and high-yield questions that most reflect the Mcat material itself. They have a section bank, Q packs, and also full-length exams that are sold individually, but I would recommend just getting the biggest bundle that you possibly can. There's also an AAMC print guide that you can purchase in your bundle, but personally I think this is a waste of money because there's so many free resources online that tell you the same exact information. It's just not in a book. I linked the AAMC store below so you can check out what bundle pack meets your needs and budget, but I recommend buying as much AAMC practice materials that you can, but if nothing else, definitely the full-length exams. The first private company I'm going to talk about is UWorld. They have great question banks and great explanations. I think this is an amazing source for so many high-yield practice questions and passages. They do not have full-length exams, but if you buy their subscription for 3 or 6 months, you'll be more than set for having practice material. A lot of Mcat studying has to be active learning, so that's doing problems, thinking through it, understanding why you got the problem wrong. Not so much reading passages and highlighting like you would in normal college courses. The second rated brand is Princeton Review. I personally use this resource. I love the books. I did an online course, which I think was not necessary, but the books were very detailed, thorough, and they had great diagrams and practice questions at the end of each section. The one thing I did like from the course was that it gave me assignments every day and practice questions to go through, except I'm not sure if the practice questions were as good as another resource such as AAMC or UWorld. So for Princeton Review, I would highly recommend the books and look into if an online, in-person, or self-paced course is for you. The big bundle I got also included all of AAMC's material, which was really nice, as well as 15 full-length exams, except I will say this about Princeton Review. The only way you'll get the full money-back guarantee is if you do all 15 of those full-length practice exams. And personally, I think they are more difficult and just not reflective of AAMC's material. Overall, Princeton Review's main strength is content. Their questions are pretty good, there are a few errors in their books, but their full lengths are just not representative. So don't prioritize using their full lengths as a study material. Your time is better spent doing UWorld or AAMC practice questions. Okay, moving on. Kaplan. Kaplan also has a big 7-book series for all the subjects on the Mcat, and their books are okay. I bought them, but I never ended up using them just because I literally looked at the thickness between Princeton Review and Kaplan, and I saw that Princeton Reviews were a little bit thicker, so I thought the more knowledge that I know, the better off I am. So I actually ditched the Kaplan books, but I've heard great things. The pages are nicely laminated, the information is concise, they're interesting to read, but I personally thought that the little concept checks were kind of silly to me because it's like, name this compound. Mcat Orgo section is probably not going to ask you any nomenclature questions, but that was just my first impression of the Kaplan books. I've heard this from various people. Kaplan's full-length exams are not representative of the real MCAT itself in any way. It's not just more difficult, but it's just weirdly worded. The questions aren't what you will find on the actual exam, so definitely don't waste your time purchasing their full-length exams. Kaplan has a great 528 guide. It's a 400-some page book, and you can use this to guide your study plan and figure out your strengths and weaknesses. Don't solely rely on this one book for all your concept needs, but definitely use it as more of a summary. The final thing about Kaplan is that their flashcards might be a good resource if you like the term and definition on flashcards so you can bring them with you. No concepts, not stuff that you're going to get from the books. And those are the 4 resources that I can personally and confidently speak on: AAMC, UWorld, Princeton Review, and Kaplan in that order. I've heard good things about Next Step. When I was taking the MCAT, they offered a free full-length exam, so check that out. I also heard that ANKI Flashcards is a really good resource for high-yield questions. I think most of their stuff is free, so definitely check that out. But keep in mind, you're going to have to dedicate some time to learning how the program itself works. Let's talk about budget. Studying for the MCAT does not have to break the bank. So for the bare minimum, you might want to purchase AAMC's resources, especially the full-length exams, a guide such as Kaplan's 528 book, or just finding a free MCAT guide online that tells you the topics that are going to be on the MCAT without getting too much in detail. That way you go through the topics and then you use free resources such as Khan Academy, YouTube, old class notes and textbooks, and that's how you can format your study plan. And that way a large portion of your budget doesn't go towards content review and practice questions and Q banks, but rather makes your content review quite cheap, and then you can use that money for high-yield practice questions such as from UWorld and or AAMC. Besides practice questions and passages, you also might want to spend your money on workbooks, such as Princeton Review's CARS workbook. I know this helped me a lot because I personally needed a lot of extra practice with CARS particularly. So having a physical workbook and having passages that I can just quickly do in 8 to 10 minutes was essential. And like I said, all my Amazon affiliate links below are products that I have either used or tried, and I also rank them by importance. Let's talk about key studying hacks. So after you plan out your schedule, you're going to want to take a diagnostic test. I don't recommend that you take a full-length AAMC, but you might want to use the sample test. The sample test just merely doesn't give you a raw score, but there are so many conversion sheets that I found on Reddit, so I'll link one of those below. It's very normal to get a sub 500 score, so don't worry about that. You're not going to really go over this test, you're just going to use it to pinpoint your strengths and weaknesses. Figure out if you need to have a course. One of the benefits of having a course is that it keeps you on track, but it can be overwhelming because you have so many study resources. If you're doing practice questions, trying to go through content books, if you have an online self-paced portion like I did, you have a lot of modules and videos to watch, and it's also expensive, especially in person. So figure out if a course makes sense for your time, energy, and money. So another study hack is to do diagnostic tests and little quizzes so that you're self-checking whether you mastered this concept or not. Don't just move on and do random snippets of each topic. Make sure that you thoroughly go through each concept, complete it, and then move on. Make sure you rotate subjects throughout your study journey so that you don't forget or get bored. It would be really unwise to go through bio and biochem for 2 months and then say, okay, now I'm moving on to orgo for a month and then gen chem. Don't do that. Have a routine. Now, it depends on when you're taking the MCAT. I personally took it when I was at school itself, so this was a little more difficult, but now with more downtime, you can set a schedule for having a wake-up time, having study times, breaks, days off, and also a bedtime. If you're doing any diagnostic tests or full-length exams, make sure you're doing it at the same time that you will be taking the MCAT. Normally that would be starting at 8 a.m., but with recent changes due to COVID, it could be earlier or later than that. Another tip. Do not ignore CARS. I think the majority of students either brush off CARS and they're not good at it, or they are good at it and then they don't do well on the actual exam because they blew it off. So make sure you're consistently incorporating that into your study schedule. And the same goes for psych and soc. A lot of the section is rote memorization. So make sure you take advantage of this. Use active learning, drill flashcards, use ANKI. Don't let psych and soc be your downfall. Now, a little bit more about practice tests, because this is really important. This is where a lot of your learning does come in. You're going to want to simulate the test day. strategically plan out these practice tests. The AAMC ones are really important. When I was studying, there were only 3 official full-length exams. I did the first full length maybe 2 months out, the second one a month out, and then the third one I did maybe 2 weeks out. So figure out the best approach for you, but definitely use up all those AAMC practice exams. 2 days to go over a practice exam is totally normal. Making a spreadsheet that pinpoints your strengths and weaknesses for each section after a full length, and then talking through what you were thinking and how you have to change your mindset to get the question right next time is an A1 tip. You have to do this when you go over your full-length exams. The final studying tip for the MCAT is make sure you relax the day before the test. So say you take the MCAT on a Saturday, that Friday, stop studying at like midday, 12 p.m., 11 a.m. The rest of the day should be dedicated to calming yourself, calming your body, making sure that you're prepared for test day tomorrow in terms of snacks, directions, alarms, and make sure you go to bed on time and you're ready to go for the next day. Finally, what I wish I did on my MCAT study journey that I did not. I wish I had focused more on practice questions. I think a lot of my issue was focusing too much on content review and, like I said, passive learning. So going through those books, reading them, but not so much doing high yield questions. I also wish I used ANKI for that spaced repetition, and they have pre-made flashcards that I was talking about, and I know I'm gonna have to get familiar with ANKI in med school, so I wish I had done that sooner. I also wish I did more passage-based questions, not so much freestanding, because when you get to the actual test, it's almost all passage-based. I also wish I practiced CARs more, because that is the score that is hardest to boost. So you're going to need the most time to raise a low CAR score. I wish I took the full lengths more seriously with starting at 8 a.m. and mimicking the environment that I would be in on test day. Things that I like that I did is that I gathered a ton of opinions when it comes to studying and which resources to use, which is why I'm making this video. The second thing that I liked that I did was that I had a daily checklist and not so much a very strict regime, and so that kept me on track by knowing what I had to complete each day and then checking that off and moving all the stuff that I didn't complete to the next day. I also like that I had a what I don't know document for my AAMC practice test. So each question that I either got wrong or that was a guess, I wrote down the question, the answer, as well as what I was thinking, how I got it wrong, and the concept review that I had to go over in order to get the question right. And this document I frequently reread and repeated so that I could refresh myself on my weak points, but the MCAT is so broad that a lot of the topics that I got wrong didn't really show up again on my practice questions or even on my real MCAT. But just in case, this knowledge could be very useful in getting that one question right that you need to boost your score. And lastly, I have what I shouldn't have done while MCAT studying. First is that I drove myself crazy on pre-med Reddit. It is good to reference and you can get a lot of great free resources, but I was keeping my eye on my exact test date subreddit, and this was just not healthy. I shouldn't have done that. I even checked it after the exam. It was just, don't do that. It's not worth the stress. 2 is that I flipped out the night before my exam. I should have been practicing going to bed at 9, 10 p.m. I was up reviewing some concepts until then, the night before the exam, and it drove me crazy. Finally ended up going to bed at 2:30 in the morning just to wake up at 6:30, so it was just not a good idea. That's why I really stress relaxing the day before the exam. And 3rd is that I put my eggs in one basket. The majority of my resources was Princeton Review, and that left little time for those valuable high yield ones like AAMC, which I did have, and UWorld, which I should have bought. And that is all I have. Thank you for sticking with me for my opinions on the best tips and tricks for the MCAT. All the links that I mentioned in this video are in the description box below. Please give this video a thumbs up if it helped you, subscribe to my channel, and comment below with any questions, comments, concerns. That's it. I'll see you next week. Bye!